Hello, welcome to another Tailgate Technology session brought to you by Frontier Precision. I'm Wes Schneider. Today we're going to be talking about the new R12i from Trimble. So the R12i basically now combines two of our awesome new technologies we've got to offer. So the first is our ProPoint, which you've probably seen out there now for a little while, but ProPoint is our RTK engine that allows us to get in and around the harsher environments, kind of like our trees back here. It also then adds in now the new tip technology. So that's our Trimble inertial platform. What is that? So basically that has our new IMU inside of it. That's an inertial measurement unit. You gotta love all the acronyms, I guess, being thrown at you. So that means that we can now take measurements and stakeouts without our level bubble or the need of the bipod here. I'm going to be using it for today so that I can talk and have some hands-free action with our camera a little bit. So basically that IMU has 3 internal accelerometers and 3 internal gyroscopes that give our internal RTK engine its exact attitude. So it knows where it's at. So we can do our levels, and I know they're spec'd at about taking measurements and staking out up to about that 30-degree mark. I've done a few things more than that, but that's what it is spec'd at. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in here a little bit. We're going to check out some of the settings on it and go through a couple calibrations and routines for it. And then measure in, I got a couple control points that were network adjusted, one out in the wide open, and then I've got another one back in here too we're gonna check out. All right, so today is gonna be kind of a little bit of a quick one, just to kind of cover some of the new aspects and get the word out on what it can do. All right, so let's take a look. So we go ahead and we're already Bluetoothed and hooked up to it here, you can see on the screen. First thing we're going to do is we're going to fire up our survey, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. We are going to be doing our measurements today off of our local VRS network here in Minnesota. My R12i VRS and measure points. You can see up on top we do have a new icon with that red X. It looks like the receiver with a couple ghost icons beside it. Notice this where it says face LED panel. So that's a reminder now telling us, and if you've heard me talk before with the previous ones when we were calibrating the old tilt sensors on the R10s and R12s. The on-off LED panel needs to be facing back at us on the data collector. So that's how the IMU and all the sensors are orientated. So make sure that's facing towards you always. All right. So you still see that red X. Before our tip technology is kicked in, you do see we have our E-bubble up. That's because I have calibrated. I'm going to go through that calibration routine, but calibrated the internal tilt sensor already. So we have a red X. To calibrate that, the IMU traditionally needs movement. So when you first fire it up, just moving to your control point in that linear line will have it calibrated by the time you reach that. If I'm standing still like this, you can actually see as I tilt in a linear back and forth like that, it's actually working on calibrating that IMU. And so you can also go left and right, but you can see it already kicked in and calibrated. So you see our green check mark there. And we now have green check marks pretty much across the board. Everything from the IMU to our internet flowing good, and we have our precision-based initialization over there at 400 horizontally and 300 vertically. You do see that now it says RTK plus IMU, so both are in play now. As soon as we have that calibration, you see the E-bubble went away. All right, so let's just take a look really quick at that calibration. We're going to jump in. It's down under our instrument, and if we go to our tilt sensor options, you can see our E-bubble displayed there on the screen. And if I go down and click calibrate, you now have 2 options for calibrating our E-bubble. You can calibrate it to our vial. So if you have a trusted source like this, for example, if I want to go to the rod, I would have it calibrated to an adjusting jig in the office first. That way I can calibrate it to that. Or since my IMU is calibrated, I can now choose to calibrate to the IMU. So let's go ahead and just choose that and go ahead and calibrate that. Okay, so it wants us to go ahead level ourselves up, and start. So that little sensor in the bottom right, that's our RTK plus IMU sensor. So we leveled to that, and we're calibrating to that boy. All right. There's a couple other calibrations we have down here, or adjustments. For example, the pole bias. So these are kind of some cool functions we want to make sure to make note of on the Trimble side, that it does give us capabilities of calibrating in the field, knowing when there needs to be a calibration or adjustment made. The sensor is very active and always monitoring that information so that we can make those adjustments and become more accurate as the day progresses. So, for example, pole bias. So if our pole becomes bent or out of whack during the day, we can actually create a pole bias adjustment to correct for that by rotating 180 degrees and calibrating again. It'll create a pole bias. There's also an IMU bias. So if something happens to the GNSS head, maybe an extremely heavy hit, or a large temperature swing throughout the day, we can actually create an IMU bias as well. And if you're curious on any of that information, there is a question mark on the right hand side there that'll take you into the manual describing and breaking down that process and when you would need to do that process. All right, so let's go ahead and back up now. You can see our calibration is there. Okay, if you want to go ahead, you can change the age limit again. Right now it's at 30 days. I'm just going to go ahead and accept that. All right. You now see a new icon too on the screen. So when we're using our IMU, it actually gives us this little icon showing our heading and things like that. Orientation of that IMU. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and get these control points measured in and see what it looks like. Come on. All right, so you notice in our, it's been actually a little while since I've been to this point, so I've got a little bit of grass growth here. So I went ahead and selected my control point to stake it out. You can check out our new kind of chevron we see as we're staking this point out. It gives us our orientation of the IMU. So you can see now to my point 101 that I'm heading to, it shows how far north and east I need to go. But again, I can stake this out now, and it is staking to the point on my rod. Since I'm using a 2-meter rod, it is calculating that. So no matter what angle I'm at, my go north is going to be staying relative to where that point is. So as we go ahead and start navigating to our point, you can see I went too far there. If I go ahead and pass the point, you can see now the point is in front of me. All right. So let's go ahead, get a little bit closer here. As we're getting closer, you can see our south and east. And we got our control point. Just going to kind of show you, I'm staking it out. I'm in my my nail that I have set. Go south about my 200ths there west as I'm tilting the rod. All right. So that's kind of our stake out there. You can see what that looks like. Let's go ahead now and I'm going to initiate a couple different measurements, and so you can kind of see the results for those. Let's go ahead and escape. I'm going to go into measure. We're going to be using ProPoint. This is going to be our 101 dash, I'm going to call it dash 1. It's going to be just a check shot. All right. Sure we're on our point there. There we go. Just going to make sure she's on with my foot. All right, so what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and give it a little bit of a tilt. Get my shot in. Store that. Let's go ahead and tilt
Observation stored.
this way.
Observation stored.
I'm going to go ahead and just do all 4.
Observation stored.
This one, let's take her way down here.
Observation stored.
All right. So it does still give you the option if you want to take a measurement without the IMU, you can turn that function off. Or since we're in the measurement point screen, you can simply go in and select observed control point. That will go ahead and toggle off our IMU. And you can see our level bubble pop up there. Take the shot. You can see up on top our RTK plus IMU is gone. Just trying to keep her steady without a bipod.
Observation stored.
All right. Went ahead and got that guy stored. So let's go ahead and check a few of these out real quick, and then we'll jump in and do the one in the woods here. So I'm going to go ahead and tap our point. It shows all the points displayed there. Our initial control point, for example, to our observed one we just did. All right, so horizontally we're about 300ths, vertically about 9,000ths between those two. Okay, let's go ahead and check out, instead of our observed, let's check out that first shot that I did leaning to the south. Four hundredths horizontally, 100th vertically. How about to the north? 500ths horizontally, 200ths vertically. All right. About 300ths, we'll round up and say about 200ths vertically. Okay, so you can see kind of the differences there, but the IMU is extremely accurate. And again, using for that stakeout and point measurement, you're going to be able to move pretty darn quick. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in the trees there and get one in the canopy, just so we can check out and see what the results are there. Let's go. All right, we're at our next control point here. Point 100 is going to be in our harsher environment, pretty decent tree canopy. All right, this time for our observed control point, I did bring in my bipod so I don't have to hold her steady for 3 minutes again. All right, so right now I did select my point for stakeout. If you go ahead, you can see our point tilt as I go ahead and move her over that control point. You can kind of see it move there, the location on the screen of where we're actually measuring to, or staking out in this case. All right, pop it down in there. You can see our horizontal and vertical values. I would assume in a harsher environment like this, we're going to see a little bit tougher vertical type results. But let's go ahead and let's see what it's capable of. First, we do still recommend to go ahead and do an RTK reset in the harsher environments. That way we forget that we're no longer out in the wide open and trying to marry that information together with this harsh type solution. All right, so let's jump into our measure, RTK init, and we're going to reset our RTK. And as a reminder, we're doing all of our measurements today from our off of our VRS network. So, all right, And again, with the IMU, to calibrate that, or align it is the term, we're giving it those linear movements. You can see our green check mark appeared. All right. Okay, so now we're just waiting for our precision-based system to initialize. We've got our green check mark there as well. All right, so you can see what those values look like horizontally and vertically. I'm going to get out of our stakeout routine now. Clear that selection. I'm going to go into our measure, and we'll call this one 1. All right, and we're going to switch it out of this back into our topo point, so you can see our E bubble went away. Let's go ahead now and let's take those measurements at those angles. So I'm just going to tilt her over.
Poor precisions.
Store that guy.
Observation stored. Observation stored.
Just using my boot to try and keep her from popping off the nail.
Observation stored. Observation stored.
All right, those are some pretty good degree angles for measuring on something like this. Normally it would be pretty upright. If you're shooting to a control point or a tree, you're probably only popping it out something like this usually. All right, so let's go ahead and get that observed control point measured too now. Observe control. So as soon as we kick over to observe control point, you see our E bubble pop up. So we're going to be measuring it outside of the IMU mode. It's an automated routine that it'll do as soon as you choose that. And measure. All right, we're going to be doing about that same 180 epochs that we did, so roughly 3 minutes. We'll go ahead and speed through this for you. All right. Go ahead and
Observation stored.
got that guy stored. Let's go ahead and check these points out now. So there's our shots we took. Let's compare that observed control point we just did. So horizontally we're about 200s, vertically we're at about 400s. We'll round up a little bit there. All right, let's pop out to that first tip measured point. 600s horizontally, vertically about 400s on that as well. Let's work our way down the list. 500s by 700s. Oops, skipped over one there. About 200ths by 100th on that one. And finally this guy. We're about 300ths by 100th on this one. All right, so that's us using tip and ProPoint merged together in this harsh environment. I really recommend, if you have an opportunity to check this technology out yourself, give one of your closest Frontier reps a call, and we'd be happy to come outside and show you what it's capable of. All right, until next time, thanks, and we'll see you soon.